You still have the picture.
Are you ready?
Yes.
No, Woody just plastered.
Jameson, come here.
They do.
How are you?
What really got me? And I don't know why.
I don't
How we doing?
I want to thank everyone for being here today. Yeah, can you hear us? People online, Joel, can you hear us? Okay, good, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a quick meeting, pulled together very quickly. Thanks to Cora, thank you very much. And there are so many people to thank. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And if I decided to try to thank everybody that has been so beneficial and helpful over the last couple of days, nights, it would take 15 minutes. And we have a lot to cover. So just know that the county and the city of Moab and the city of Castle Valley are thankful for everybody who has done everything they could to help the people who have been so dramatic, devastated by this flood. We thank you a lot. I am going to turn the rest of the meeting over to Cora, and she will handle it. I think we're going to begin with introductions. So I'll start that, and so we do the people online first. Yes, let's do the people online. Joel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I'm Joel Brown with Senator Mike Lee's office. I'm his Eastern Utah director. Thanks for having me on the call today.
Thank you. David?
David Hinkins, Senator to the area.
Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Church. I'm the City of Moab's Communications Manager.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Jasmine Duncan, Mayor of Castle Valley.
Thank you. Amber?
Amber Mortensen, Emergency Operations Manager for the Department of Transportation.
Thank you. Is that Jeff?
Jeff Wilden, UDOT, on safety for the southern half of Utah.
Tracy?
Hello, I'm Tracy Harrison. I am the State Floodplain Program Manager with the Division of Emergency Management.
Is that Angela? Can't read it. Angela?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Angela.
Angela is with our office. She is the liaison section manager.
Okay. Well, thank you. Jess? Les?
Microphone work. Morning, Les Bolton. I'm Castle Valley's Emergency Management Coordinator.
Welcome, Les. Holly? Holly? Gabriel? Is there any others?
Did we have Jamie introduce herself?
Yeah, there's Jamie's on there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Huff. I work for the State Division of Emergency Management, and I'm the Flood Plain Mapping Program Manager for the state.
I'm not sure who Holly is with.
Holly's with Jamie.
Yeah, she's with us listening in.
Okay, and then Gabriel Wojtek is our clerk auditor. My name's Mary McGann. I am a member of the Grand County Commission.
My name is Cora Phillips. I'm Grand County's Emergency Management Director.
David Everett, City Manager for Moab.
Bill Winfield, Grand County Commissioner. Sheriff Wiggins, Grant.
Jana Wilkinson, I'm the Resilience Bureau Chief at the Division of Emergency Management.
Mackenzie Goodenough. I am the State Floodplain Planner out of the Division of Emergency Management. Whitney Conrad, I'm the Region 6 and 7 liaison for the Division of Emergency Management, so I covered this area.
Mike Palmer, Chief Deputy, Grand County Sheriff.
Joette Langees, Mayor of Moab City.
Bill Jackson, County Road Supervisor. Bill Hulse, Building Department, Floodplain Administrator, Grand County.
Chris Wachowski, U.S. Geological Survey. I'm Jared Beard. I'm the UDOT Region 4 OE Director.
I'm Chad Johnson, Maintenance Area Supervisor for Southeast Utah.
Devin Good, the local chef supervisor.
Stephen Stocks, Grand County Attorney.
Dan Sten to the Grand County Engineer.
Tricia Dean, Grand County Commission.
James Murphy, GIS Specialist for Grand County.
Stephen Bowles, Finance Officer, Grand County. Dan Hinckley, UDOT District Engineer.
Thank you once again for being here. Thank you. Yes, so if want to make sure everyone has the agenda and
Identified needs list. The identified needs list, this is not our first flood event. And this it's expanded upon our hazard mitigation plan, our multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan that we did with the city, Castle Valley, who's online, and they have their own hazard mitigation plans. And we want to review the implementation status of that plan, where we're at, some of those projects that are ongoing, and where we need those funding and partnerships, where we can strengthen those partnerships, and then come up with some agreements and a timeline for future implementation. So I just want to review the implementation status of those projects. We have our flood emergency action plan. Al Hulse initiated that conversation, and we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers Silver Jackets ever since. So that has been developed. We're also working with Utah to develop and have developed the Utah Flood Damage Assessment Toolkit. That's been going really well. Spring runoff 2023, there was over 200% snow water equivalent in the La Salle Mountains, and due to that being the case across the state, we received funding through the House Bill 003, and we were able to get some equipment and signage to help prepare for that event. Working with Chris Wachowski with USGS, we were able to conduct some gauge enhancements to put a precipitation monitor on the gauge below Shealy Tunnel. That's been super helpful in increasing our ability to monitor the storm events. Of course, as a reminder, USGS gauges are not designed for flood warning. That's why you see the comprehensive real-time flood warning system on this list.
Cora, question?
Yes.
We saw that they were going to stop the USGS at Shelby Tunnel at the end of September.
You want to speak on?
Yeah, the BLM pays for that gauge, and there's been some worry in their budget that they don't have the money to cover that in the next year. I'm not exactly sure where that's at, if they've been able to come up with funding for that gauge. If it did go away, we would move that precipitation, the rain gauge, to the upstream gauge, which is just upstream of the diversion.
So is there a way that we could, that, county and city could help support the funding for that?
Yeah. You guys pay for the part of the gauge that's down here in the valley.
Right.
So there, and that is kind of through the Division of Water Rights.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you guys can help pay for those gauges. I'm hoping BLM
comes through.
I feel like the last interactions I had, because WISA was talking about that also, and I feel like the last feedback I got from the BLM was that they were okay right now.
Okay.
But if you guys want me to check in on that, I'm happy to do that.
I can do that too.
Okay, that'd be
Check with
awesome.
Anne-Marie,
Okay.
see where they're at.
Okay, that'd be great.
That'd be good. Thanks.
Quick question on that, Chris. You said there's a rain gauge at that. Is that data for that rain gauge accessible online? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's publicly accessible.
On that gauge side through the stream flow?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to distract here, but you can set up a water alert, what we call water alerts, so you can get an email or a text message if the rain rate exceeds a certain rate.
And Dan, I can walk you through that process if you don't have that set up already.
Okay.
We also, any more questions on that before I move on? If anyone has questions, please stop me. I will not be offended. Please interrupt me. This is 4 questions. We have the Mill Creek Watershed Mapping Project that we're working with Bowens Collins with. Did any want to speak on that, or?
That would be Jamie's program that's best to speak on that.
Yeah, so hi everybody, it's Jamie. We have contracted with Bowen Collins to develop a watershed restoration plan for Mill Creek. So we have focused on Mill Creek because there was at one point when we started the project some connection with Pat Creek too. So we just kind of focused our analysis on Mill Creek. We do have the Mill Creek surveyed. So, and it does include the last event, not this current event that we're speaking to, but it does include survey all the way up to the last event. And we are working with both the county and the city of Moab to identify some potential watershed restoration projects that we will take a further dive into. So if you would like to take a look at that report, Cora and Bill and the City of Moab team do have copies of this draft analysis that was presented to them on July 31st. And we just need feedback on a more on what the preferred option is to further analyze how to really kind of mitigate this flood risk on Mill Creek. So yeah, if you have any questions about that study, I'm happy to answer them now or offline too. But we are working on trying to develop, and these are permanent solutions. Just wanted to mention that too. These are not temporary solutions. So these would hopefully be permanent solutions in the future.
Who asked for that study?
The county. That would be Bill and team there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And who's paying for it?
This is funded through the state.
Yes, state. Okay,
it's actually fully funded through FEMA. It's 100% fully funded through FEMA. So no cost share to the county right now.
And Jamie, could you also speak to the LIDAR project?
The LIDAR or the other study we're doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we are also underway with a large scale revised flood risk analysis for the entirety of Grand County. It also includes Carbon and Emery as well. So we have a large scale revision to flood risk analysis coming. That's underway. We're not as far along as we are with the watershed restoration plan for Mill Creek, but we're doing basically just an updated analysis of your 1% annual chance flood risk. So this is the 100-year floodplains within the county, and that's the entirety of the county. We haven't officially kicked off the project with the communities yet, but that is on the plan to come to you guys soon and talk about that study. But that's a very long-term project. That's going to take a few years to develop, which is why we wanted to do this restoration plan quicker.
Oh, what is soon? Is that like a month?
No, it's not a month. Federal projects take a long time. So that we had scheduled for the fall to come out and just kick off the meeting and just explain the project to you, but we probably won't see draft high level risk assessments until next year. Just because we're evaluating thousands of stream miles within the 3 counties.
Is that San Juan, Grand, and Emery?
No, Carbon, Emery, and Grand.
I'm also working with a group with the state for direct technical assistance to design a comprehensive real-time flood warning system that is no cost to us here for that design. The engineering firm is Consor Engineering. I met with them, I think it was just last week. So trying to move forward with that. We're also working on grant applications. as you know, we did not move the Pat Creek Detention Basin 1/4 through decision by the commission. The Hazard Mitigation Program grant, that is grant funding that's available after disaster. So it was available after spring runoff 2023. And I submitted a notice of interest that I want to apply for that grant for Old City Park low water crossing, Hervey Lane low water crossing. We've identified that there's an increase in capacity. And then also the implementation of a real-time comprehensive flood warning system. I understand that the city has also applied for that grant or submitted a notice of interest for that grant as well. Any questions?
Now, why was the BRIC application not supported for the Pat Creek Detention Basin?
The match is 10 million.
Oh,
Well, the match was 6 million to 8 million. I think that's what our got the minutes from that.
Yeah, BRIC requires 25% local match of the funding, so FEMA pays for 75% of the project.
It was out of our reach. That's like a huge, wow. And it was a big detention pond.
Oh, it's huge. It's like bigger than
Like the whole valley.
bigger than Ken's Lake.
But there is another detention that's going in down there too.
There's a debris basin that's going
Okay,
that way up.
all right, good.
Yeah. And there are options to apply again in the future. If funding becomes available, you can also use in-kind match resources and stuff like that. So there's options to look at if you want a long-term.
We definitely need to bring that retention pond back to the table. That was a mistake letting that slide by. We've seen the outcome of that already here. So
Yeah.
I do want to say, I do want to say that we are continuing to work with San Juan County to provide them information. They are working through a PIFR grant in order to bring that a project within Pat Creek to fruition. The storms on Mill Creek that would unfortunately not, putting in a Pat Creek detention basin would not help the impact of Mill Creek.
And what was happening the other day wasn't coming out of Pat Creek. It was coming off of Johnson's up on top and really affecting kind of Heather, Heaven, Easy Street, Chapman. That dry wash was getting filled up and White Horse, there were just direct waterfalls moving into White Horse. So all of that, Pat Creek wasn't really a factor in the flooding that was occurring, at least out in the south end of the valley.
it has been a factor in the past, and as Jamie up there is discussing, we need an entire valley flood mitigation plan, and so we don't pick which drainage the next flood's gonna come down, somebody else does, so.
I'm just talking about the events that happened this weekend.
It's obviously a really complex issue. It's not just our creeks. There's all the drainages off the cliff wall. And that's kind of why we're looking at a real-time comprehensive flood warning system as well. So we can identify these areas of impact and what that means for different areas within our community. That is one project that could help with Pat Creek. But there are many projects that we're looking at as countywide.
I believe that at some point here, we're gonna have to either dedicate the floodplain administrator or a full-time flood mitigation engineer to this entire valley to start working this situation from one end to the other. So it's gonna take a very broad overview to come to some conclusions here, and I think it's a two-part process. I think the emergency portion of it is one, but the mitigation is the other. We've got to get on the fact that there's some mitigation that needs to be dealt with.
And I think that takes us into where these strengthened partnerships are needed, funding partnerships and procurement of equipment. So right now, and this is not necessarily in a priority list order, it's just some of the items that we have identified as kind of big ticket items to move forward and be successful in mitigating future flood events and being in a position where we're better prepared for these flood events. We have recurring events, and the monsoon storms are really impacting our community. So,
good question. As far as partnerships, like right now, we're the city of Moab and Grand County have, you know, put interest to apply. Would it be more powerful if we applied for these grants as Moab, Castle Valley, and Grand County as a whole? Would that make the possibility of getting these grants greater if we were asking?
I can speak to that one if you want. For BRIC, which is, again, it has the 25% match requirement. That one tries to prioritize multi-jurisdictional. That's one of their pushes they're going for with that program, is larger multi-jurisdictional partnership projects. I don't know your situation with all of your private companies or utilities down here, but they can often get involved in those projects. We've had some.
They can or they can't?
They can. They can't receive funding, but they can provide in-kind match as part of the project or reduce the cost of some of the project if they're doing work. So there's different ways to have the match other than just cash. It can be the labor of your staff. It can be, you know, in-time labor, materials, and equipment. It can be donated stuff from maybe people who want to donate, or if you have private partners that would be either involved or affected by the project, they can also contribute their portions towards that match.
That would really increase our in-kind contribution if it was all the two municipalities as well as the county.
But we would have to identify a project.
Yes.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
go
that-
grant for, and then to try to find
Yeah.
one that.
You'd need one that
Property,
fits.
the land would qualify as a match. I mean, we probably should have Zipla at this table with us
Yeah,
even now, which is.
I think we've had some that have, there's been land donations that can count
Yeah,
towards that.
timing of it.
Yeah.
When that land is donated, whether it's before or after the grant.
Yeah.
Is approved, it determines whether it can be
Yeah.
used for the match.
And you can, we've seen some projects where they have put multiple things together as part of an entire system. They have to be related enough to be considered, you know, related to a singular project, but they have been like different things, like maybe you have a basin that also has improvements in the stream upstream or other flood flow things that are related to it. So we have seen where they've done multiple projects that are similar, or multiple basins, or there's different ways we can group projects together.
And I do want to say it wasn't an issue of the quality of the application that has been identified as.
It's the match that was a struggle. Yeah.
The other thing that David and I met with Senator Romney's staff yesterday, and they made it very clear that we have to have a comprehensive plan that covers everything that we're looking at, and then we can focus on individual areas that we want to get funded first.
And
that's going to be a much stronger application when we go for federal funds than if we just piecemeal. You know, I know the city's very concerned about the 300 South Bridge and replacing that. So we're really focusing on how we can get funding for that. But, you know, Mandy yesterday said you need to really look at the whole big picture, you know, when you're coming for federal dollars, because that's what they're going to want to see.
Right, and that's why we're doing the Mill Creek Watershed Mapping Project. We have our joint hazard mitigation plan, which is a requirement of a lot of these federal applications.
And there is the one project, it wasn't one you guys have applied for, but it is, we're aware of it, but it's one that's run through the congressional representatives. They're the ones that can apply for PDM funding. It's applications through them. Right. So that would be another option to work through. So it's probably part of what they're advising you on.
PDM stand for?
Pre-disaster mitigation.
Yeah.
It used to be BRIC, used to be PDM, and then they kind of retired the PDM program and brought the BRIC, which is building resilient infrastructure and communities. But there's a part of PDM that remained, which was kind of a congressional, I'm trying to remember what the word is. They have some funding set aside that can, you know, legislators and representatives can put projects in and advocate for on their side.
Yeah,
so
that's what Congressman Curtis told us about that.
Yeah.
Something that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, so that would eventually, once it's awarded, DEM still has some oversight in the management of the funds, but it is the representatives that work with you and will put the applications in and advocate for those projects with that kind of set aside funding they can apply for. So, and that is also competitive nationwide, but it's the the different states representatives that are putting in projects for it.
Push it forward.
Yeah.
And like Joette was saying, the 300 South Bridge has certainly been identified as a priority within the city limits by the 5th West Bridge and 4th East Bridge.
Those are full stop our top priorities in that order.
Excuse me.
Those are full stop our top priorities in that order in terms of impacts when water comes running through town. Those bridges in that order have the most, adverse impact to the street. So
you might share a little bit more about why those have been identified. And
well, they're basically, if you've seen them at all, you look underneath, the apertures there just aren't big enough, right? The water gets jammed in there, debris comes down. We've seen it now twice in 2 years where 3rd South gets jammed up with debris, water flows over, and then what that water does is it all goes through Dewey's and downtown, right? Like it's, in terms of impact to the core of Moab and the commercial and residential impacts that are probably most obvious, that would be the #1 fix for us. And then the 5th West Bridge, similar issues. You look at it, it's just got small openings for that water to get through. It acts basically as a leaky dam that then pushes water back upstream to a large degree. So and then 4th East does the same thing. But again, in that order is how we're going to prioritize.
What's the order again?
3rd South, 5th West, 4th East.
Did I have it?
Seems a little backwards to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, having
what
watched
do you do with
downtown
your-
get
if
flooded
you
twice
get-
in the last
no,
2 years, that's the
You're
primary.
just moving the flooding somewhere else. If you don't deal with downstream first and add more flow to it, the bridges in between are gonna get over.
In terms of our assessment of impacts to Moab City, that's,
Just my thought.
yeah, appreciate that.
I always work downstream up.
Remind me, so the 300 South Bridge, that was built to the 50-year, where the rest of them are the 100-year when they built it. Maybe.
Perhaps, I don't even know.
And what about Main Street Bridge? I mean, we're seeing that it's right up there.
Yeah,
What's our feelings there?
I was gonna ask, are all the bridges locally owned and managed,
Not
or
one on Main
the
Street.
main streets?
The other 3 are though, yes.
Yeah, UDOT would be only one on Main Street.
Right.
As you got talked about.
Upsizing? No. No, we have to this point, no. So we'd have to look at the data and see what these storms are and see where we need to go from there. We design for 50 and 100-year events. So yeah, we'll have to see what these storms are and where we're at and see where we go from there.
Well, in your updated mapping that Jamie will be getting you,
Yeah, that would be huge.
will update what that actually looks like, because 50 and 100-year now is very different
It's
from
different. So that's
50 years ago when they first made the maps.
That's going to be a huge help for us as we look at our structures to see what are those events, what are those flows, then we can have our people look at those structures that cross the main highway. So
I would like to mention one of the alternatives that came out of that July 21st meeting, Bowens Collins, where they presented the alternatives. A lot of those bridges were discussed, but cost was the issue.
Yep.
The other alternative that was really looked at was damming off Mill Creek, putting a diversion in there to accept that floodwaters, detention basin
Up above. Yeah.
which would alleviate the need for a lot of these bridges to be opened up. Again, it's not going to be a popular or cheap fix.
Well, the big difference for the county back in 2022 is the Stocks Bridge. Remember when the Stocks Bridge that got backed up and then it started going down Beeman and getting into homes, and then we made the improvements to that bridge. I think that since you've done that, we haven't had any problems out there.
And that,
but it really hasn't been tested with a storm.
We haven't had the same flows yet.
All of our flooding in the county has been overland flooding, storm drainage.
but yeah, that being said, I would hope that you guys would start looking at Chapman and Heaven. Those culverts are just, so it is pushing.
There's a lot of other issues with that.
I know.
Not just a culvert.
It's interesting you should say that, because
It's already documented in my 2025 budget for replacement of those,
Thank you, Doug.
either box
Thank you.
culverts or
Thank you.
whatever, whatever our county engineer comes up.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's good news.
So it's in the it's in next year's budget too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Of course, you guys haven't seen that, but it's in my 35 fund. Yeah.
For Chapman and Heather.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then, I don't want to stop anyone else.
And I'll just throw this in if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Just for clarification, depending on costs, they both may not be done, but I will start at the low end on Heather and work with upstream.
I think that would be perfect. Thank you.
Next on our list is the comprehensive real-time flood warning system. As I said, I'm working with the state for direct technical assistance and consort engineering for that task. So it will take some time for that design. And then hopefully with the HMPG, the Hazard Mitigation Program grant, we can get funding for the implementation. Now there is a grant match for that. So it is a very expensive project if it is to be done right. If you are looking for a system that's kind of the ideal, Pima County, Arizona, or Tucson is a good one to look at. Just for, I know sirens have been discussed. One of those just for the equipment is $90,000. So that's not for the placement, for engineering that would go to place that. So just,
I just smile
an
because
expensive-
whenever, we have a flood warning, everybody comes out.
Yeah.
Nobody stays home.
In Pima County, Arizona, they have video feeds of the streams. And we've discussed that because gosh, if we had a video of some of these popular locations that people do go at, some of the bridges at Power Dam, and you could put that on a display in a command center, we wouldn't have to have individuals staged at each one of those locations saying where the water is at. Right now, we don't have any gauge on the North Fork of Mill Creek, which as in 2022 is where we had the super high flows. And we have water coming off the footballs, and we had precipitation monitoring equipment around the area. And for spring runoff 2023, I've been trying to place precipitation monitors, and the BLM right of access is very, very difficult. I'm still working through that process to place those precipitation monitors and looking for alternative locations to place those.
Imagine putting the detention pond up above the power dam.
So yeah, it's
warning systems.
Yeah, so we're looking at some of those options and the feasibility and the timeline and how long we're willing to wait for it. I understand with the city, the Mill Creek Active Transportation Network is constantly gets impacted by these storm events, and that is an important resource for city residents. Yes. Don't speak. Back to spring runoff 2023, when we had the HB003 funding, we identified a need for UDOT over highway message boards. At the time, that was fiscally not able to happen, and in the time frame that the funding was available, but that has still been identified as on the south end of town, our emergency operations center that is predominantly used by SAR during a lot of these big events and operations. It is very difficult to make a left-hand turn with a trailer when there's a lot of traffic on Highway 191. So putting in an emergency traffic light has been identified as a way to make that area a lot safer for anyone accessing it.
Now it can be used only in an emergency.
That's what I understand has been identified.
Yeah, I think it's the safety aspects of getting out on the 191, but also the response time.
Correct.
That's gonna help.
UDOT said that was $500,000 for that.
The one on Aggie's house.
The one on Aggie's $500,000. Yeah, I'm not sure what this would be for something like this here. What type of system we would have. I mean, we've got these in different places. Mostly they're for cities, for their fire stations and whatnot. Mostly we've only ever approved them when it's actual emergency vehicles with lights to give that extra warning to people that there's an emergency vehicle coming out. So that's part of what we have. So yeah, we'd have to look into this a little more. I know we looked into it a couple years ago and just couldn't find a way to it. They've always been funded by the locals rather than UDOT on these types of.
The locals fund those.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I'll do some more digging into that and see what the requirements are, what it would look like.
And I believe Aaron Trades might have already been in contact with some folks.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, like I say, yeah, I remember looking at it a year or two ago. Yeah, we'll dig back into it and report back what those options are.
And we discussed the detention basin on Pat Creek already. Were there any other? As a reminder, we are working with San Juan County to provide them with information that was obtained through that application process, and they are working for the PIFR grant, which would be fully funded, but take a longer amount of time. I think it's 6 years.
Four.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
for what?
PIFR grant?
I do not work with NRCS. I think it was a 6-year. I think they're probably about a year into it.
Yeah. So they're working through that. And then public safety building as well. Sharon, did you want to?
Everybody knows my thoughts on that. We're in an old library and we're scattered out. We can't really get out to the OC because of the light issue. We take that into a factor. And so typically we'll kind of meet at the fire department to set up an emergency incident command. And yeah. But even then, it would be nice if we had an actual place, centralized place where not only the city, but the troopers, the sheriff's office, anybody for public safety can kind of go to and establish, and we don't have that. So.
And then the procurement of heavy equipment to promote self-reliance. We are in a remote area. If anything happened to 191, we'd be kind of out by ourselves. A lot of our regional assets are utilized elsewhere. When we have these big storm events, we're not the only ones that are impacted. The Wasatch Front is impacted our region. Others within our region are impacted. So we really need to have that equipment here locally in order to respond efficiently.
Bill, what do you think the #1 piece of equipment would be that would assist? If we could get one piece of equipment to help with this, the aftermath or before the flooding?
Well, I think for equipment, I've already put it in my budget for 2025 is a hydrojet for cleaning out culverts. As you know, that we do have some undersized culverts. Really, the issue is the debris and the amount of silt and sand that already have full. And you know, we've in the past used our back truck to clean them out. Also, our back trailer, you know, but that's pretty limited. That's more for finding utilities and what. But we've used it for cleaning out culverts. Just slow process. Use a lot of water. Get the hydrojet, and it speeds things up quickly, and you can move on to the next one. And so there's my plug for the budget. They're not cheap.
I was wondering how much are they? 3, 5, 4?
And 90, upwards in the 90.
And we're also depending on local contractors to rent equipment, and that's just simply not always available to us, and that delays our recovery time.
So I guess just an update on what the state is aware of and working on. So I would still advocate whatever you can get for yourselves is always going to be the best for you to have and manage right away. But we do know that the events of last year and this year have made the state. So I know UDOT at that level, our director met with UDOT and some of our other partners recently. We're meeting with all the state agencies. And it really has highlighted a lot of the issues, like the windstorm in 2020 up in northern Utah really hired issues with contractors because a lot of our locals share the same contractors.
Exactly.
And so when we have multiple people involved, it really creates a shortfall in contracting. It's not the easy answer that a lot of people think it would be. So I do know that as part of our the governor's initiative where DEM is working closely with all of the state agencies to train them, meet with them, coordinate with them, and work resources out. Statewide equipment placement and options outside of contracting is part of that discussion that they're going to start looking into to help with better staging. But as we said, you know, still look at what you guys can get for yourselves, because then you're definitely at least covered if something happens. But we are looking into those other options for staging, and then also other contracting options as well. So, and then as part of the state recovery framework, we're looking at a lot of those, you know, more longer term recovery resources and needs after statewide events.
I don't know if we could answer this question, but I've had quite a few citizens call me, and they, you know, they found some information somewhere on the internet that says that for 72 hours after a disaster, we can dredge those stream beds, that we can go in and push the dirt out.
That would be
and I don't know where they got the information, but I've heard it from about 5 people, and I don't know how to answer that.
State Division of Water Rights, Army Corps of Engineers both say no, there is emergency permits that we can get to do some work, but you still have to follow up with a full permit and all the bells and whistles, which may mean you need to go back in and redo it after you've done it. So it's not an easy, quick fix. You just get in there and push the stuff out of the way. It's way bigger than that. And it's risky. If you do something and it doesn't work out with the details after the fact, then we've just wasted a whole bunch of time and money.
I think what we're looking at the city is not so much the creek bed, but all the silt that's been deposited outside of the creek bed, because what's happening is every time we have the flood, there's more silt, the creek is higher on top of it. So that's something that we're talking about doing that's going to be quite costly. But to your comments about hearing from residents, I think something in here, and Cora, correct me, there may be another place on funding and partnerships, is we need to have a way to work with our community so that people that are in harm's way of a flood are prepared, and that they don't expect that the city and the county is just going to jump, you know, to help them, because we've got other things that we need to be dealing with within the city. And so I think it's important for us to kind of have a plan. And I don't know if it's this group or if Cara is going to organize that, or how that's going to happen, that people that are in, you know that a flood's coming, need to be prepared with sandbags. If they don't have flood insurance, they should be getting flood insurance. Some way to actually get those people together so that they're prepared, and not have expectations that somebody's going to come to the rescue, because that might not happen. And I don't mean if there's a health issue or if there's a safety issue. I just mean in protection of the property.
Yeah,
Bill can speak to that.
Since the county joined the CRS program, we've made ourselves available. We advertise that we'll go out and walk properties with property owners to give them ideas on mitigation, how to protect themselves, protecting their house, not their property so much. Proper ways to do it, when you need permits, when you don't, things like that. We have very few people take advantage of that. We get the calls after the flooding.
That's right. So if there's,
it's the expectations that we set when we're putting this stuff out.
Prep them for the next event now while they're thinking about it.
The county's going to take care of all their problems. It's not
that's good to know, because I know Bill, my neighborhood, Bill was out there this weekend. You know, it's kind of a variety of pack of expectations. Some are like, you should help us, and others are like, oh, it's my deal and I'm working on it. And so it's good to know.
I think it's the expectations we set. We need to
make And just on that note, you mentioned the CRS credits. That's part of being a National Flood Insurance Program participant. And the CRS credits that Bill has worked tirelessly to get us has lowered the flood insurance rates for community members.
I think, but Steve, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Jamie has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
She's on the risk map side, and I think there's some stuff in chat, so I don't know if someone's monitoring.
Okay. Sorry, Jamie.
Oh, no, I actually put it in chat. I would caution on, we had the conversation about dredging a minute ago. You can do it. It doesn't say that you can't do it, but I would caution on just, dredging and putting the tailings on the side of the creek beds. Because that's just potentially increasing risk to another location. So you really want to kind of, if that is the answer, you would want to move all those tailings to a different location other than the creek beds. And that also goes true for, and I think Bill touched on this, individual property owners just trying to flood fight themselves and potentially moving, if they're moving dirt on their land, they could potentially cause a problem somewhere else. So just throwing that out there, just want to make sure that nothing's getting there's no increased risk as we're trying to think about how to mitigate it too. So
I think back to Joette's, some of her remarks, that some of the citizens that are having issues are because of the continual raising of the stream bed, and West Center comes to mind with the Healy Pad and Helena Roar, and the Taylors down there. And as that continues to come up, they continue to be every single storm now inundated, and we can't ask them to wait. We do have to deal with that at some point. Their houses are literally being flooded down there, so it's not a matter of waiting any longer. We've got to have some immediate action of some sort. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I wanted you to finish because it's related to that. So this is, I guess, just a side note, as you're talking about your comprehensive plan, the different projects you want to apply for, if you can do multi-jurisdictional or multi-project. FEMA is really focusing a lot on nature-based solutions and natural restoration. And we've had a lot of success with like riverbed restoration type projects. You can mix natural restoration with more hard engineering, if you're doing it for in town, but then some of the stuff outside. So just as you're building a project, if you're doing something for any basins or the bridges or the riverways, adding some of that in, like maybe include some of that downstream redredging, reshaping. And we've done it on sandy areas. Virgin River, Washington County has been doing a lot of work along the Santa Clara and Virgin River down there because they get, the sandy braided rivers that come out and scour properties and houses, and they have infrastructure along it, so they're having to redo it, and throwing some in of that river restoration along with the engineered project can sometimes get you some boost up in points for getting those projects.
Well, and I believe the BRIC grant that Bill was working on was not just the retention basin, it was literally restoration all the way down the stream, which is what is needed just as much as the retention basin is.
Great, it's good to know you guys were.
It was a
stuff on there.
Yeah, Bill, excuse me. You said they should contact if people want help with knowing how to mitigate their property, not asking to have it mitigated, but want help. Who do you office? Call your office, and then someone will come out.
We sent it out in tax notices last year, I believe. We put it on our publications on our website.
And also for go ahead, Trish.
Oh no,
we have worked with the families that are mostly impact the city has. I think that there also needs to be an understanding that things have changed. There's new channels that have occurred because we've really never had these kind of events before. And some of these properties that are 100-year floodplain are now floodway. And that's scary for those folks. And so I think, the city's doing what we can, but there's only so much we can do.
I think it's going to take a joint effort of all of us working together to do it.
Yeah.
I apologize. I have to go jump on another flood meeting for another community that's been impacted lately. So I'm going to find a quiet spot out there, but I'm still here. So if you need anything from me at the end, just let me know.
Thanks for your help.
There's a few offices.
Oh, there's some places over there. Okay.
Yeah, because we have one office that's empty, and I think.
Should I go this way or out and around?
Out and around.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And maybe, I guess, getting back to have a community coalition, so to speak, to help work with each other on the properties. I mean, maybe, Bill, maybe it's not the government that's trying to organize that. Maybe, Cara has suggested when she comes back into town that that's something that she would like to do. We just received that $5 million for fire not exactly sure exactly. what it is.
Community wildfire defense.
Yeah, which can also be used for flooding, because they kind of are, there is part of it can be used, I think, not specifically for flooding, but
some of the actions that are used to prevent wildfires will also reduce flood risk.
Right.
So that's how it's kind of.
Right. And so if there's a way for her to maybe organize something as opposed to the government, maybe it'd be more impactful. Maybe
And
it'd be more
we're all participating. Well, I mean, Bill and I, Bill Jackson, are participating in those conversations with CAR. There are a lot of folks, people for those conversations.
Right.
Tracy has raised hand. Perhaps they want to speak to it.
Tracy?
Yeah, hi. I just hearing a lot, and just understanding not only do you get calls from your citizens, but the state's also getting calls. And I've received a couple of calls. I know I've reached out with Bill. I think just involving maybe the citizens, or like Bill had mentioned, you know, they give some information out, but I think it would help maybe alleviate some of that uncertainty. If the citizens realize that you guys really are trying to come together to come and help your community out in ways that maybe they're not aware of, right? And perhaps, you know, making them more aware of all the work that you guys are doing and trying to deal with these issues might help them out a little bit, empower them. I know Jamie made a comment. I've heard about the flood insurance comment. Yes, flood insurance, you know, we do promote that as an individual way of helping them mitigate their risk. But if you need any social media graphics, if you need any written information, facts and questions, things that we can help you with, please reach out to us, reach out through Bill. We can share that information with you. Anything you want to try and put out with the community, be happy to help you with that.
And I have a whole collection that I've compiled from National Weather Service, FEMA Region 8, and other stakeholders. I have a whole list. If you would, I would love support in sharing the information. Most of that you can find on the Grand County Emergency Management Facebook page.
You know, we haven't heard much from Casa Valley. We've really focused on, and I know they had a lot of damage. I think I'd like to hear what their damage is, what they're dealing with, and what their needs are right now.
Hey, good morning, team. Les Bolton out here in Casa Valley. So yeah, we've been hit pretty good. Pun intended, we're keeping our head above water right now. So our primary concerns have been keeping emergency routes open and keeping the roads open. And so we've really, you know, over the last month or so, we've really started to focus on our public messaging, you know, with the use of social media, real-time reporting, and grand alerts. So currently right now we have the upper 80 is still inaccessible, and Miller and Buchanan are open to four-wheel drive with high clearance vehicles. I'm sorry, was somebody asking a question?
No, I was filling it up.
Oh, okay. So our road crew is out working diligently to get these roads back open, you know, clearing dirt off Casa Valley Drive and getting the east side of the valley open to residents. You know, just for the group, we've put in quite a few mitigation efforts recently with flooding. We've purchased new equipment with the road crew. We've increased our road crew manning by 33%. What that means is we've added an extra person. Now we're a 3-man team. We too have applied for grant funding under DR 4752 in hopes of getting some funding to fix the upper and lower crossings for the upper 80. We've developed written plans that are aligned with our hazard mitigation program and our base EOP. We're prioritizing culvert development on the east side to alleviate some of the issues that we have between Placer and Castle Creek coming down. And that's primarily our biggest issue right now is, well, it's one of the bigger issues, not only the upper 80 being closed off for, you know, anywhere between 24 to 72 hours, but the east side, primarily Miller, Schaefer, and Buchanan, those roads have been closed several times over the past month or so. And so trying to alleviate the mud and runoff that's coming across those roads and closing them off is one of our priorities. We're working on the LiDAR mapping system. I'm sure most of you know that with UGS. And once we have hard data, we're looking to readdress FEMA's NFIP. And so that's something that we're looking to take back to the community because currently we're not part of the NFIP. We're in the process of implementing the rapid disaster assessment program. And that's where we basically take volunteers from the community, and during the recovery phase of an event, we actually send them out to gather real-time data and report that back to the EOC so that way we can have a more accurate picture and then report a more accurate picture of what's going on out here in the county or to the county. We really started to focus on our public messaging and getting real-time alerts out to residents, prior to a flash flood happening. Cora's been a huge help in getting grant alerts out, and we've recently developed a Facebook page just so we can get the information out to residents. And then another thing that we've done is we've developed a list of volunteers with equipment that would be willing to come out and help us. And we've seen that over the last couple of events, people out here with backhoes and other heavy equipment to help alleviate pressure from the road crew. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Les.
Yeah, good job.
Chris, did you have any data and information from this recent flood that would be helpful to share?
I kind of put a little summary report together, and I was just working on it before I came over, so I emailed it to Cora, and you can share that with everybody. It's just sort of a summary, but just in general, the gauge down in the wetlands, our lowest Mill Creek gauge set 6,600 CFS. So that's actually a little bit bigger than the August 2022 event. It's also bigger than the June event of this year. The upstream gauges didn't show much flow at all. So all the rain, the storm hit below our upstream gauges. Our upstream gauges are up by the diversion to Kens Lake. So we don't have any gauges between basically Kens Lake and town. So the storm hit that's like the key zone, right? Between Kens Lake and town. If a storm rolls through there and rolls up in the Sand Flats area, falls on all that slick rock, that's kind of a danger zone for Mill Creek flooding. And that's what happened. Our gauge downstream seems to have picked up the peak, but then it got damaged after that. We had someone out there this morning, so it's all kind of a giant mess down there, which isn't a surprise. But we do have funding for a North Fork gauge, left-hand gauge. That's funding that's coming from the Upper Colorado River Commission. That one's going to be, it's going to be tough to build something that can withstand this kind of flows, but we'll do our best.
How much does it cost just for a gauge?
The installation is about $20,000, and then to run it annually is about $17,000.
Almost need one on both sides of that fork there, don't we?
Yeah, that would be handy. There used to be a gauge at Power Dam. It ran for like 50 years. It ended in 1992. So that would be, below the confluence of the two.
That's certainly something that we can look at with contour engineering in our design, utilizing the USGS gauge information that already exists, plus additional gauges.
I'm sorry, Mary. David and I have to leave. We have another 11 o'clock. So thanks.
Thanks,
for together.
Thank you. Well, I've heard the power dam itself is damaged.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And how much, what kind of threat, or if any, does that pose for our citizens?
Well, people aren't paying attention. We've caution taped it off, and they're going to walk around it. So So we can have somebody up there full-time managing it, and that's not gonna happen.
I guess you mean from like a failure, like a
Failure.
It's just going around the dam now at this point.
It's actually going through a hole in the dam from one of the old slide gates that they probably used when they were generating power or whatever they were doing there at the dam. So eventually, my guess is the next storm's gonna plug it full possibly, and it'll go back to spilling over the dam. But there's a lot of debris stacked up extremely high there. And that really should be addressed somehow to remove that debris, because people are climbing all over it.
Yeah.
And I have reached out to the Utah Division of Emergency Management to try and figure out who can address that, who has responsibility over that. So Army Corps of Engineers, Historic Society, there might have been one other in there, but we're trying to determine that.
Most of it really could be handled with a mini X or something with a thumb built and pull all of the debris off to the side. I don't know if that's something you guys can do, but you'd have to walk right along the bench, but just stacked up all over.
Is that the ownership of that area is so confusing? Is the dam in BLM land or county land?
BLM. The facility's not owned by anyone. It was built by Historic.
It was originally wood.
Either with
and
the
then
city
the
of
power
Moab or
company-
some private conglomerate to generate power. It only lasts like 2 years before it.
And the power company bought the rights to the power, right? And then it's a historic.
I was trying to research if it was just dissolved or absorbed.
Sounds like it's dissolved. Braden says that it's not even listed on his critical infrastructure website. But somebody must own it. We're checking with Rocky Mountain Power. We haven't heard back from them. Additionally, DNR might have some input there. So, and we're gonna talk to Tony Mancuso, see if he knows anything about it. And then definitely the Utah Historical Preservation, but we haven't heard yet today. We put that inquiry out yesterday.
Yeah, I know Jana, when we were driving down here, actually, we were talking about that, and she said that she's been working on it still, like Whitney said, so.
Has anybody, has there been an analysis about that dam recently for structural integrity? I hesitate to put a piece of equipment on top of it.
Yeah,
You wouldn't put it on top of it.
You know, I've been there to look at it.
I've got some photos I can share with you, but you would just have to probably boom out.
Probably ought to be in that, looked at.
I guess why I was thinking, like, if was a catastrophic failure of the structure during that, like it continues to scour behind it, and then water's flowing through it, and like causes cavitation and erosion, the actual structure.
I think that's where we're at with it.
Yeah, that could be
That sounds very dangerous.
Yeah.
So how do
We have kids and people playing just right underneath the dam of it, and I think we need to do something about it, but like Cora said, we can't figure out who wants to take care of it. The BLM saying we don't want to take care of it, and so I don't know if the county just overrules everybody and takes care of it.
The irrigation company has that little pump station right below it. They have an easement.
Separate diversions below it there, right?
Right, and there's one right by the dam, that structure that sits there as well. They have a pump station there. Used to be used more than it is now.
Well, it sounds like something that is pretty critical, because it could, I mean, we don't want to say we knew something like this could happen and we haven't proactively studied it, decided how, I don't know how to go about having something like that started.
I don't think we need to study it. I think Bill needs to drive up there and take a look at it.
Does anybody have a key to the gate?
Search and rescue.
Well, if I can get
I guess we get bolt cutters.
Yeah, I got some big bolt cutters. It's easier to ask
Those BLM
for forgiveness than beg for permission.
Okay. Well, I got some big bolt cutters too, believe it or not, but I'd rather
Tell the BLM if we did when we're done.
I would say out of taking anything out of this meeting is we got to do something about that dam, because it's a problem.
Well, just all the debris that's stacked up there is a real safety hazard for people that are gonna be swimming in that creek within days below it.
Just common sense, just out the window, huh?
Yeah.
I would say that's a BLM management thing. I mean, that's a recreation area that they manage as a recreation, parking lot, toilet and stuff. I think we've gotta have some.
And we're looking into what our options are to move forward in the quickest timeline possible with that. I think the word's been put out to all the entities to try and find who is responsible, what can we do to get this addressed expeditiously.
So we need to be on.
And the BLM was the one that reached out to us.
Yeah.
That those conversations are happening. Okay, great. Yeah.
I can just tell you, they're gonna work at a snail's pace, and if we have another flood that comes down, we all knew about it, we're all in trouble. It's in the county of Grand, and so I think that we just need to do something to alleviate the logs that are built up in front of the dam. I mean, the water's going around the dam. I don't know how it hasn't come down yet.
But it's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is this is higher priority than getting my roads open?
I think it's just a safety issue, Bill. I don't think it's a higher priority, but it is a safety concern for the people that are gonna be in that creek.
Yeah.
Does a BLM
You could look at it, Bill, and with your expertise, I'm sure you could decide, well, this could be done after this, or.
Yeah.
And then this list, obviously, we didn't talk about everything that's on it today, but I think we can all agree that our budgets that we're submitting will reflect our priorities. Some of the equipment that you mentioned, requests for additional staffing. This is a pretty comprehensive list that goes beyond what we discussed today, beyond our hazard mitigation plan. Today, we're still working on identifying how we can get power dam assessed, addressed. Those conversations are happening. Looking for opportunities to fund equipment to make Bill's job any easier than it can be. I know he's been working really hard. His whole team has.
Everybody has.
Everybody has. All through the weekend.
I would like to point out, we'll have 3 commissioners here. The county does not have a public works department. That's something to remember. We have a road department. It's funded mostly with gasoline tax money that is earmarked for road maintenance. We have relied heavily on the road department to do drainage stuff over time, and they have done a lot, but we don't really have a department whose responsibility or funding is geared towards operations or flood control or anything of that nature. It's only been in the last few years that we need to put regular sums of money into flood hazard mitigation on any kind of significant level. And to be honest, the amount of money that's going in there, like 400,000 a year, is probably sufficient for maintenance and operations only, correct? Capital improvements. Our stormwater management plan was first submitted in the 90s. It was first presented to the commission in the 90s. At that time, I think it identified some $30 million worth of improvements that needed to happen. That was updated in 2011. That number pretty much doubled. If we update it again, it's going to probably triple from there. We're probably looking at $150 million worth of stuff that's supposed to be done. Those plans are great, but it's a huge amount of money. So there either needs to be a flood control district created that has taxing authority to the people that are in that district, and there's a source of money that's funding it, or there needs to be some kind of mechanism created if the county really wants to get in this game of doing flood control for other than just our road system. If we want to do flood control for our residents and other areas, there needs to be a commitment to come up with some kind of comprehensive program and funding mechanism to do that. The city, back in like 2008 or something, created a stormwater utility. It's a little bit easy for the city because they have a utility bill that goes out monthly for their trash and their water and their sewer. So it was a monthly fee that was added on to that. I think where that fee's at right now in the city is about $9 a month for a typical residence in the city. Commercials based on a different formulation, but there's a source of revenue that comes in specifically earmarked for storm drainage projects, replaceable projects. County doesn't have anything like that. I'm not quite sure the best way to implement something, whether it's a special service district that went from city, county, and San Juan County. It looked at the basins, basin-wide special service district. That takes a lot of energy to do. I know in your budget priority meeting that you had a couple weeks ago, storm drainage was identified, flood control was identified as one of the top priorities. There was some talk about a plan and a phase 1 being implemented. Not clear as to what, if that was just kind of using those terminologies as a discussion point, or if there's an actual plan that's phased. I'm not aware of it. So I just want to put that out there, is that, you know, this is a huge undertaking, and if we step up and we say we're going to do these things, it's the gift that keeps giving for a long time. In terms of funding it and doing it, the expectations of the public that the county is going to be the entity that does those things. I'm not saying that we shouldn't help our citizens out, but we're setting expectations that the county's come in and solve problems on private property. Or you know, create things to prevent damage from happening to private property. That you should go into that with eyes wide open as far as the money that's associated with going down that path. Yes.
Thank you.
And I think leaning on the road department to do it all the time is not the solution.
Not at all.
I think another solution too would be have something similar we do with of course takes money, but that we do with sometimes we have a GSA general service agreement with consulting engineers or things of that nature. And we could also do that with contractors. And so when things get rushed and in a pickle and things are buying, we got some money earmarked for contractors to come in and clean out basins, pay them, things like that. So that's one way you could address that.
So you're thinking of like having the contracts in place, but only use
it when you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, have like a rate fee table negotiated, set in place. Right. You know, this piece of equipment with an operator, so much per hour, so much per day, whatever. And then they're on call, and if we need stuff, we could call.
On the emergency takes a priority with them if you write that contract correctly. I worked with NDOT, Washoe County, and the city of Reno, which has a huge flooding issue, a much greater proportions of this one. And literally the contractors are called and told to be out on the bridge when Chorus alert system comes into place. And so they're already, they know that priority is there. And so it's doable. It definitely takes some effort to get the contractors lined up and understand that wherever they are, they have to pull off and come and attend whichever portion they've agreed to deal with. And so sometimes it's just an excavator sitting on a bridge in the middle of Reno, and they shut the bridge down and they just pull all the debris that plugs up in front of that bridge, which would have helped, you know, on several instances right here in the middle of town.
Exactly.
So would you see this being a effort between Grand County and City of Moab?
I think the city ought to look at it, sure. I don't know why it couldn't be a collaborative effort, sure, but you know, there'd be different scenarios for the county and different city, different needs, but just the basic idea would work for both entities. And I wasn't really thinking more of an initial type response, but that's a good idea. I was thinking, you know, kind of after the fact when roads are needing rebuilt and things like that, and then the basins are plumb full, you know, you gotta give it a little time, you know, before you can get into them. But they can work on basins while the roads are getting rebuilt, or, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, just back to Dan's point, we're kind of either expecting or hoping that you're gonna handle a lot of that when we really have got to get to where we've got somebody that's dedicated to it.
And some of the things I think that people overlook, and not on purpose by no means, but we're focused here on the valley. My crews are focused here on the valley right now, but that don't mean they're all here.
No,
I'm opening roads in Onion Creek. I'm opening roads in Blue Hills and Ruby Ranch. You know, we're
How many thousands of miles?
A Canyon and East Canyon. Right?
I know.
So, I mean, we're scattered, but the majority of the crew are here. So, cover a lot of areas.
No, I think we'll continue the discussions with UDOT, what's feasible moving forward, working with the city, and I think our priorities are gonna be reflected in our budget requests for 2025. We have this list here that includes a lot of that, and then some of what we discussed today. Here's the front of that.
Or I just got an email from Everett Taylor, who's the assistant state engineer for dam safety. He said that the dam, let's see, they don't have record of the dam on the database nor the owner. Given the structure, we would consider this a small, low hazard dam with a power company no longer in operation. I suspect the ownership has been transferred back to BLM since it's on their property.
You mind forwarding that to me?
Sure.
Has anybody spoke with Dave Powell at the BLM? I mean, that would seem like a good place to start, and it might prevent where Bill doesn't have to go up there and do that work.
Sure.
We've been speaking with Dave Haber, but he's LEO.
He's what?
Law enforcement supervisor, but as in anybody else at the BLM, I don't have an idea.
I've got a relationship with Dave Powell over there. I'm more glad to give him a call and see what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah. I can follow up with Haber.
So you're planning to go over it together?
No, I can call.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll call Dave too as well. Dave Powell's. I think they're both Dave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a lot of donuts. Bill, I'd like you to take some for your crew.
I'm sorry, what?
Take some of the donuts for your crew.
Oh, they're too busy to go.
They're too busy. They're very generous.
They had two big old pans of brownies sitting in the lounge this morning. They're not the lounge.
Well, everybody takes some.
Thank you.
I don't know.
And is there anything else that we need to cover before we adjourn?
It's Paso Valley still on.
Yeah,
Jasmine's there.
And so it's Tori.
There was a request from Les, I guess, about the culvert, Paso Valley Drive, the damage that was there, wanting to come and get a look at it. I had responded, I think, with an email yesterday. I saw that. Is that something I could go out there this evening and look at that more? That's something that the county wants to support, helping out.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. If you come out and just get eyes on. You know, we've got a lot of residents. We posted pictures and told them that we're reaching out. So I think it'll give us some closure. We'll be able to answer, you know, questions that the residents may or may not have.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, Dan. We are putting that item specifically on a special meeting agenda for tomorrow night. So if you are able to come out before then and just maybe give us a eyes on input,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to repair that erosion around the entrance, because that could get worse fast in another storm. It did look like the barrel of the culvert was intact, and the road bed over that is probably okay right now, but to protect that, something needs to be done for sure.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you once again. Grab some donuts and we'll have to just decide how we want to do a follow-up. And I do think we need to have some type of way to allow the citizens to be heard too. I think a lot of citizens right now just want to be heard if nothing else. So we should look at how we can do that in a way that would be beneficial and not just a point finger gripe session.
I agree. I will say though, when we go out, you know, we have responded to citizens. Bill's got a thing online. We go out and look at it. You know, the expectation when they show us these problems need to be fixed is that the county's going to step in and fix it.
You know, there's a lot of people that will, you know, I know Bill's one of them. My husband will, you know, we should get a list of people who are willing. So once you go in and talk to them, say the county does not have the bandwidth to help, you know, here's some people to email and ask if they could help. I think that might be beneficial or something of that nature.
Like a volunteer. I have that going.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know my husband and son went and worked really hard on Cynthia Smith's place, and she didn't get anybody from all the work they did.
Good.
We were really afraid she was going to lose a road again, but she didn't.
I know, and I went out to her in the last go round and I said, you know, your best avenue is to protect yourself right now. We're working on bigger, more regional thing, but move slowly. Very slow.
I think that we're gonna have a liability issue here if the county doesn't get involved fairly soon, though. We have people that are constantly building their corrals down through the creek bed, and I understand wanting to utilize that land for your animals, but they're part of the problem.
Oh, yeah.
They're the problem at Heaven. That's caused by a fence holding back debris till it couldn't go any longer, and then it spread out all over everybody's property, and that's all the way up and down. We also have an issue that I believe is going to turn into a legal one where Arroyo Crossing is dumping all that water right out onto Spanish Valley Drive, and the residents are not happy. They are not happy. They're sandbagging to prevent Arroyo Crossing's floodwaters from damaging their property all the way down Spanish Valley, and it shouldn't be those residents' responsibility to fix Arroyo's problem. And Arroyo has a big problem there. So we've got to get them at this table fairly quickly, I think, or at a table, and let's get that resolved, because I think that's an 18 or 24-inch pipe coming out of there, and it's a little tiny retention basin, and that thing overflows immediately. And I mean, even our own county treasurer is all sandbagged up protecting his property. And both of his driveways, I think one's his family, his in-laws, is blocked off. It's unusable anymore, and his is sandbagged off. He's either got to drive over or open up the sandbags just to utilize his own property. And we shouldn't be letting a development impact our own citizens the way that one is.
And I would say that Bill Hulse is working on ordinances for that and plans for the future.
We can't wait for the bike path to fix that problem.
Not that side, but
we can't wait for the bike path to fix that problem. It's going on right now.
I guess my biggest question is, Bill and others, has the road crossing people, the Moab Trust, have they cleaned out their detention basin?
No.
I was at it yesterday. No, they don't.
No.
And that comes to enforcement.
Problem.
We don't
right there.
I agree to force people to do
Well,
things they're supposed to be doing.
Do know Arroyo Crossing wanted to be here today. Caitlin called beforehand, but because of previous commitments couldn't. But I do think we need to let them know that
I have let them know, they have
Thanks.
gotten ready.
I will tell her.
Stuff about
I don't think cleaning out that basin's gonna be the answer, though, it's too small.
Restrictor on.
Well, it's too small, but as you clean it out, you make it bigger.
Yeah, I agree.
You add volume to it.
There's two on that side, both of them need to be bigger and they both need to have a restrictor put on.
Yeah.
I know we are over time, so I just, thank you so much. I know everyone here is incredibly busy, so if you do need to get to other priorities, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here in the conversation.
You know.